genuine pursuit of becoming better. That was a very, very healthy DNA. And as this idea formed, and as I took the 6 months off and sabbatical, where I would try to really, it was like, okay, after this, I'm never going back to, I will never be a 3D modeler. I would be only a concept designer. I'll only be doing this. Even though I was already doing that, but it was never really like sort of on paper, except I think it was some projects or some films I was doing at the time too. But it was not like that. It was not really like a standard, or it was not really that's what's on my resume. So I tried to really sort of shift from that. And so those 6 months were really sort of pivotal in both in mindset, but also tools and developing a way to like really become better. But the critical thing that was the critical shift was this mindset, and sort of like where I have to design stuff in my mind first. And then when I sit in 3D, it's like this alla prima execution time. Yeah. And this was a very fresh concept for me at the time.
I did want to talk about that because I remember when you took that time. I actually just remember when you came back, because it was like, holy shit, like, oh, look at what Vitaly is doing. And I think you had some friends that were talking about that as well. Nice. So I understand, because I was kind of confused at the time, and you just kind of explained a little bit of that as well, where you kind of took the time from Blizzard to focus on that. It was kind of like a transition moment for you. What kind of planning did you have going into that? Into like, okay, I have 6 months. Did you have like, here's everything I'm going to do it, each month is going to be this thing? Or did you go in knowing you had a change and you just went for it?
I planned everything for 3 months because frankly, I was a bit sort of intimidated. I didn't know if I could pull it off, because when I did this in the end of the session, when I did 10 days of mech, it was still to the days one of the hardest things I've ever done psychologically.
Yep.
It was straight up my hell week, like no joke. It was really, really difficult psychologically, because it would be 12, 14, and I think like 16-hour working days where all you do is like you try to model as fast as you can and also try to design as fast as you can, and for like no real break. And you would go to sleep, and I would be like, this is my only time to really think about what's next, what I'm going to do next day, because tomorrow it's like go time. And it would be like this thing where it's like, what the fuck did I do? Like, why? But I have to finish it. And so I only planned for like half of that time first. Because for those who don't know, I actually moved to Hawaii with my wife to do this. It was like a good bargain, I guess. Like, I was in Hawaii, but I was never even leave my house. It's like very strange. I would go like, I think like 2 times a week. Like I would go like to like an ocean or run or whatever. But mostly it was just me sitting there.
So and can you talk about that kind of mindset, the planning? Like, okay, I'm gonna go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
3 months. I'm gonna do the mechs, because I don't know if people.
So what happened there is that I wanted to build sort of the foundation where I would be like, you know what, I want to make sure that when I get to this self-examination thing, that 10 days of mech, there is no way I can fail. And from that point of view, I was like, okay, what do I really need? And I would start to really record and put time on everything, how much time takes certain things. So for example, I remember estimating how much time rendering takes. And it would be like this puzzle. I would be like, oh, I'm done with the model. Like I can just like render it and it's fine. And then because physically to me, psychologically, it's not as difficult. Your mind doesn't register that this actually takes a lot of time and factually takes a lot of time. And as I start writing down how long each step took, I would be like, holy shit, I'm wasting so much more time here. But I'm not feeling it because I'm not considering it work. Because I love rendering. And to me, like, okay, the modeling and design, it's always heavy. It's like weightlifting. It's always like, okay, oh my god, like you do this 10 reps, you always feel it. You really feel the fatigue. When I'm rendering, I'm not really feeling that. Not because it's not as difficult, it is, but because of the type of work I do, maybe you don't have to go to the same level. Like, plus when you have tools like Keyshot or Octane or V-Ray, whatever, like you can make things look amazing because the computer does the math. And if you have some like basic understanding of like what makes a pretty image and stuff like this, it's not, to me at least, it's not was as psychologically difficult. But when I start writing down, it turned out like I was really spending way more time on that. And this is when the whole thing's like, okay, what do I need? Okay, I need HDR maps. I need this to be ready. I need materials to be ready. I need like preset of decals. I need like everything that sort of would speed things up. And this is where sort of like, okay, I also need a bigger, like a stronger computer. And I ordered this, like, some people at the time would buy new cars, and I just bought a new computer. Like I legit invested, all the free cache I had on this machine that was like 196 gigs of RAM and liquid cooled dual Xeons, and like it was just like this monstrosity of machine, because like I don't want the hardware hold me back. Like I want to make sure there's no excuse at the time where it comes to the execution. It's all about how well I know the tools, how well, if things are executed. I do things like the SteelSeries keyboards where you see like a kind of a heat map, which hotkeys you press more. And I would press this hotkey way more often, but it's like F11, so it's like a long stretch. So I'm wasting some milliseconds here. Let me move it. So I moved my F11 hotkey to Q and things like that. So I tried to really optimize. I think at the time I don't think it was a book, it was an article about this guy who trained like an Olympic, was it the cyclist team or some kind of team they trained? I don't remember the sport, but the basic premise was that the coach knew that they can't really compete with their top competition because they're just the team is not the same. Don't have the same experience. But he thought, like, what if we try to across the board to improve everything that we can by 1%? Then like collectively, maybe you have like a stack of like you make this build out of yourself. That's sort of like this mutant build that shouldn't work, but it's working. And I got really obsessed by that idea. So I started thinking like, okay, I need hotkeys, then this, then I started doing this thing when you look at I would look at the mechanical part. I would look like, let's say, like close-ups of Apache helicopter. And I look at it for 3 seconds and I close my eyes and I try in my mind to replicate what I see. And I realize how much you actually don't really store in your mind. Mm-hmm. And I start to really practice this sort of mental library of solutions. And I realized, like, you know what, you can't really do this. The only way to really learn this is to do like a studies. And just like when you do 2D artwork, you do these master studies, and you either master studies or studies from life. I would do the same thing. Like, okay, 3 hours timer, go. Like you like model this piece of Apache helicopter. And I think this is what really taught me the most about the perception of language rather than design itself, the scale, and how I think the mind, like our sort of general audience mind, and myself including, works when we see something that's futuristic, but it feels compelling. A lot of it is not really just function, but a lot of it because when we see a certain size of balls or certain patterns, how you have things connected between each other, like the plates or seam lines, you associate with the specific design language or engineering language that actually works in reality. And that sort of helps to sustain, sort of like take this belief that, this is a sci-fi fake design. So that was like one of the things. And this then was like, okay, now the hardware issue. Now there's this thing. And then I read this article about like this Oxford professor, whatever, like when they had this underwater thing, like in the pool where they would do like not free diving, but they would do like underwater swimming and stuff. And then there was this study came up that holding like, hold your breath. And then, on exhale, like there's a brain stimulation. And then because your body thinks it's dying, it actually pumps some more like chemicals. You get a bit of a boost there. Now there's way more study on that too. But like I started doing also just holding my breath like every day. And I started like I couldn't do it for like, let's say 20 seconds. Then I did like 2 minutes and 3 minutes, whatever. I don't remember. I think the maximum was like 4 minutes just in the pool. And it was like this whole like very, very strict regimen because I just wanted to see like, okay, what really the sort of the mind is capable of, like what are the real limitations in terms of what I can do? Because I also felt like, I didn't feel like particularly talented. I still don't, but at the time it was just like this thing where, okay, what is something that's really in my area of control that I know when, sort of the time comes, I wouldn't say that I didn't do everything I could, or I didn't try something that I didn't try. It was this sort of like this critical moment of this extreme ownership of sort of my faith, like, okay, I need to do this, or just don't even bother. Like you're either all in or you don't even fucking bother.